John Wick, the movie franchise that smashed onto the scene and had an almost immediate impact on both pop culture and the cinematic world. So much so that it spawned its own little subgenre of action movies that I like to call the ex-badass genre. And the criteria for these movies are pretty much all the same. You have an ex/retired badass who's just trying to live a normal life before they're somehow sucked back into their old lives where they're forced to be badass again. Now, I'm not saying that John Wick pioneered this concept, but it definitely boosted its popularity. Some recent movies that fall into that subgenre are The Equalizer, Nobody, and the movie we're going to be talking about today, Polar, which is Netflix's attempt to make their own John Wick style movie. But where John Wick was actually a good movie, this movie was... Now, before you start typing in the comment section, there are people who love to defend this movie by saying, this movie's not trying to copy John Wick, it's not a John Wick clone. This movie came out in 2019, 2 years after John Wick 2. Now, I want you to look at this poster and then look at this poster. Let's be for real. Now, I first heard about this movie from a friend of mine who recommended it to me because Mads Mikkelsen was in it. And I've pretty much liked everything that Mads has been in, you know, Rogue One, Casino Royale, Death Stranding. So I would definitely consider myself a Mads fan, and I would also consider him to be a better actor than Keanu Reeves. So in comparison to John Wick, the main actors are better. What about the story? The world's top assassin, Duncan Vizsla, aka the Black Kaiser, is settling into retirement when his former employer marks him as a liability to the firm. Against his will, he finds himself back in the game, going head to head with an army of younger, faster, ruthless killers who will stop at nothing to have him silenced. So you have Mads, a seemingly decent story, and if you look on the poster, unlike John Wick, this movie actually has source material, which we'll talk about later. So why did this movie bomb? Let's find out. Oh, I just want to preface this by saying I do have a degree in filmmaking and video production, and I do currently work as a freelance filmmaker, but I in no way, shape, or form consider myself a movie critic. I just like to talk about movies, especially bad ones, because I'm an asshole. So the movie opens up on a mansion in Chile with a guy passed out poolside. And what the f***? Johnny Knoxville? Yep. That guy. So it turns out that Johnny is actually a recently retired assassin. And what better way to start off retirement than hookers and blow? So here we're introduced to Cindy with these cheesy ass character graphics straight out of a shitty heist film. And it turns out that Cindy is actually a part of a team of assassins who was sent to kill Johnny. So while Cindy is seducing Johnny, the rest of the team is getting into position. And they all have these cheesy intros, which I don't even know why they're telling us their names as if they matter, because they don't, because they're all two-dimensional anyway, and their only defining attribute is that they're all dressed like they just walked off a clearance rack at Party City. So Cindy and Johnny are partying, and Bad Grandpa pops the Viagra because he's old, and then Cindy says,
"It's blow time, mister,"
and starts to slob his knob, and while she's topping Buddy off, the sniper shoots him in the back. The rest of the team then moves in to take him down, and the swagged out Keebler elf throws a weight at him?
That's stupid, guys!
But yeah, Johnny's f***ed, and he asks them why they're doing this. And Great Value Lucy Lou says,
"You got old, Michael."
Cindy, baby.
And remember that Viagra that Johnny took? Boner close up. Yep, that's right, boner close up. And then the team flies off singing September. Now, if I had to give you a visual representation of this movie, imagine a bowl of chocolate ice cream. But then, if you squint and look at it a little bit closer, you realize that it's a bowl of shit. That's what this movie is. Because there's so many things that happen in this movie that on the surface seem pretty interesting, but if you just stop and think about it for more than like 2 seconds, you realize, wait, that was dumb as f***. If your whole goal was just to kill Johnny, why did you jump through all these extra hoops to do so? Like, you sent in this entire team and put on this whole hooker charade when you literally had a sniper trained on him most of the time, which for some reason the sniper doesn't shoot him right away, even though he has multiple opportunities to do so. And when he does eventually decide to shoot him, he shoots him in the back and not in the head. But then you guys jump him and then shoot him in the head anyway. So are you guys just dicks? Or are you just inefficient at your job? Cindy literally doesn't have to suck this dude off. Oh, but wait. If she didn't do that, then we wouldn't get the boner close-up. Long story short, this movie can be very gratuitous at times. Anyway, we transition to Mad's character Duncan, aka the Black Kaiser, who's in a doctor's office getting a physical. We learn that Duncan has a piece of metal in him that he decides not to have removed, and then the doctor proceeds to give him a prostate exam.
When people ask me why I saved the prostate exam till last, I just think it's nice my patients have something fun to look forward to.
Doc, one quick note, please don't make jokes while your fingers are literally inside of me. Thanks. And immediately after this prostate exam, the doctor offers him pie? What? While these two are enjoying their prostate pie, we learn that Duncan is about to retire. And there's a little bit of foreshadowing that's done here, but whatever, who gives a shit? Prostate pie. Also, what kind of doctor's office is this? Why do you have this big ass Coco Bolo desk in the same room where you're giving dudes physicals? Comment down below if you get that Coco Bolo reference. So after his physical, Duncan goes to his accountant and we learn a few more things. Firstly, that Duncan has been making annual donations of about $200,000 to a trust with money from his bank account in Montana. We also find out that Damocles, the company that Duncan works for, has a pension program that Duncan has been putting the maximum amount of money into over the years. And the cool thing about this pension program is that Damocles will match the contributions that you made when you retire. So since Duncan is retiring in 14 days, once that happens, Damocles will officially owe him a little over $8 million. And the last thing we learn is that Duncan has property in 4 states. Are you with me so far? Just stick with me, the setup is almost done. After this interaction with the accountant, we're then introduced to Vivian, who serves as sort of a broker between Duncan and Damocles. And she's actually at Johnny's funeral when Duncan calls. Turns out that Johnny was actually a Green Beret. So Duncan and Vivian meet up, and she tells him that Johnny was the 4th Damocles agent that was killed this month. She says that it was a rival Russian company who's behind the hit, and that the guy who did it is held up in Belarus. She offers Duncan $1 million to go and kill him, but Duncan basically tells her to f off because he's retired. Turns out that he's a little bit butthurt that he's being forced to retire, because it turns out that Damocles has a company policy that makes you automatically retire once you turn 50. So this is most of the setup for the movie, which on paper seems pretty interesting. But remember, this movie is a bowl of shit. Don't go thinking it's ice cream. Duncan heads to Montana, where he has a little cabin on the lake. He's at a general store and he overhears the cashier talking about a movie and he decides to go rent it. Now this next part coming up made me think that this movie was a John Wick parody, even though it's not. So he goes and rents the movie. Weird that a DVD rental machine takes cash, by the way. And as he's leaving, there's some random chick selling a dog.
Boy, ain't no fucking way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
She talks to her and we find out that the dog is only 50 bucks. And he's like,
I don't need a dog.
but then guess what? So you're a retired assassin who just so happens to get a new puppy as well. That sounds kind of familiar, don't it? Oh, but that dog he just got? Yeah, he ends up shooting it in the next scene. Why is this in the movie? Was this supposed to be like a little f you to John Wick, or haha, this isn't gonna be like that movie. It's gonna be a shittier one. So the reason why he shot the dog was because he was having a little bit of a Vietnam flashback, which caused him to jolt awake and accidentally shoot the dog. And this is a recurring flashback that happens about 5 other times throughout the movie. But yeah, long story short, the dog's dead and he buries it. While he's outside, he sees a girl doing a pretty job at chopping wood.
Nice car.
So she leaves, and Duncan, being the nice guy that he is, chops her firewood for her. Not gonna lie, I'd low-key be freaked out by this. Like, I'm living out here by myself in the middle of the woods, and I got some random motherfucker chopping my firewood? Yeah, thanks but no thanks, Paul Bunyan. So Duncan's assassin DMs have been blowing up from Vivian about this job in Belarus. So he calls her and gives her 30 seconds to speak. She tells him that the boss won't take no for an answer, and that he'll double the money to $2 million to do the job. He'll get one before and one when the job is done. And Duncan's initial response is,
Your 30 seconds is up.
Jesus, Mary, fuck. Are you retired or returned?
but then he calls back and is like,
Leave the file on the company server.
You don't have to be.
Duncan actually does this whole smashing the SIM card bit a lot throughout the movie. He pretty much does it every time he makes a phone call. And it's actually paid off later in the movie, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So after this call, we're introduced to the main antagonist, the boss, aka Blut. So what does the head of Damocles, the guy who Duncan works for, look like? I mean, surely he's a badass, right?
Does it scare you?
You fucking scare me.
Really? This is the guy who scares you. Carl Weezer's British cousin scares you. Are you serious? This is probably one of the most blaring issues in this movie for me, being that the main antagonist of this film doesn't fit in it. This dude doesn't look like he should be running an assassin's company. He looks like he should be plotting to take over Lazy Town. Duncan working for this dude would be like James Bond working for Willy Wonka. Like, look at this dude. He's wearing fucking 2-inch claws like he's trying to sell you oats. They also give him this weird obsession with lotion for some reason, which I kinda get what they were trying to do, but it just gives me South Park TSA vibes. Sorry for the rant. This guy. So it turns out that the Belarus job was actually a setup by Blute to get Duncan killed so that he doesn't have to actually pay him the $8 million that he's owed. Oh yeah, and Trisha Takanawa is his girlfriend. Is that racist? Yeah, that's super fucking racist. Hold up. So apparently Blute is trying to sell Damocles, but the people buying it are sus of him for 3 reasons. Reason number 1. Who's clapping here? Reason number 2. This shitty picture. And reason number 3, because the company is almost $30 million in debt, which Blute goes on to say that it's not actually debt, it's actually income. And he explains that the almost $30 million is the matched pension fund for his employees. But he explains that if his employees were to die before they retire, then the money would all go back to the company. And then he guarantees that they will die. So Blute has basically been cleaning house for the past month so that he doesn't have to pay his retiring employees, pocketing the money so that he can then sell the company. So not only does this guy look like an asshole, but it turns out that he actually is one too. So Duncan heads to Belarus to do the job, but before that, he's gotta get his meat wet. But mid-f***, the prostitute's kid walks in. Mom, I heard grunting, is everything okay? Oh! Go back to bed, Igor. So good guy Duncan offers to take her and her son somewhere nice for a few days, and she's like, hey man, you just pay to blow my back out. Don't be asking about my son, even though he just walked in and ruined my nut, but okay. So Duncan asks how much for 2 nights. Then we transition to a hotel where a woman is calling the front desk complaining that her front door won't open. So they have to call a maintenance man to come up and fix it. And we find out later that the woman who actually made that call down to the front desk was actually Duncan's girl, and Duncan, disguised as the maintenance man, has to go up and fix it. I'm not gonna lie, that was actually a pretty smart plan to get into the hotel. So Duncan has planted his girl on the same floor that his target's on, and his target is in his room, blasting music, hanging out with hookers, snorting coke, you know, just being a general ass munch. So Duncan pulls out a drill and starts making a bunch of noise, which draws his target out. Wait, hold up. How did they stuff a melting ice cream cone into a pair of PSDs like that? Movie magic, I guess. So he draws the target out and then... Remember how I said this movie could be gratuitous at times? Well, as if punching him in the throat and nailing him to a wall wasn't enough, he shoots him twice in the balls with a nail gun because fuck you. The dude screams, but oddly, not loud enough for someone whose balls just got turned into a cocktail dish. His dudes come out running and Duncan shits on him. He looks inside and finds a file with his picture in it, and something stinks. Well, besides the hotel room, of course, because if you had this dude walking around shirtless, I know it's musty up in there. So Duncan figures out that he was a target all along, and he goes and asks Buddy, who's nailed to the wall, who sent him, and the guy tells him that he doesn't know, which Duncan doesn't believe. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I don't know about you, but if somebody had me pinned to the wall with 2 nails hanging out of my balls, I'd probably give him my social security number if he asked me. I'm not built different. So because Duncan doesn't believe him, he then pulls out a drill and starts drilling into the dude's head, and then Buddy swears to him that he's telling the truth, and Duncan's like, oh okay. Did the drill really get you any better results? So Duncan, sensing some fuckery is afoot, takes a picture of the dude and then calls Vivian and tells her to give him the first half of his cash so that he can begin his job. And Vivian, what the fuck are you doing here? For some reason throughout this movie, when we contact Vivian, she'll just have a different hairstyle and just be doing random shit. There was one time when they cut to her and I literally had no clue who it was on screen. I literally thought that this was like Lady Gaga or some shit. And then, oh, her hair's red here, and this is happening. Who's this? What happened to him? Did he get his period? I don't know, because we never hear about it or see it ever again. Which is weird, because in the trailer, we actually see another shot from this scene that didn't make it into the movie. So that leads me to assume that it was a deleted scene. But I can't seem to find it or a director's cut of this movie anyway. So it, I guess. Vivian sends him the first half of the cash and he's like, cool, thanks. By the way, the job's done. Here's the pic, send the other half, and then hangs up. Which of course fucks things up for her and Blue. Duncan then reveals that it was the hooker and her son that was in the room, and then they leave the hotel together. He tries to give her some cash, which she accepts, but then slaps Duncan in the face and basically tells him to fuck off. Which, to be fair, I get why she's upset. Because when I first watched this movie, I thought that Duncan actually cared about her and her son. But after rewatching it, he did kind of just straight up use them to get closer to his target, which is kind of cold. Maybe that's why this movie's called Pole. So Vivian goes to Blue to tell him what happened, and I don't even know what the f is going on here. Like, why are you bald now? So she tells him that he's an idiot for sending some bum to kill Duncan, and that he needs to pay him the other half of his money for the job, which he begrudgingly does, but then he says he's sending in the A-team to take him out. You remember the Fortnite battle pass? Yeah, that's his A-team. So the Fortnite squad goes to Duncan's accountant and fucks him up and gets all of Duncan's information out of him. But the only problem is Duncan owns 4 properties, so they can't really pinpoint exactly where he is. So now they have to go to every location looking for him. So of course they smoke the accountant, and Cindy says,
let's start with Florida. I have a perfect outfit.
I bet y'all do, seeing as that's your group's only defining characteristic. So Duncan's back in Montana at the general store, and Vanessa Hudgens' character, Camille, is there talking to the cashier about how someone magically chopped all her wood. And the cashier asks Duncan if maybe he's seen anything weird over at Camille's place since they're neighbors. And then they just look at each other.
You got a problem, bro?
So Vanessa Hudgens' character is supposed to be like this timid, easily startled klutz, which she actually does a pretty good job at pulling off. And I actually like her performance a lot in this movie, and it's probably one of the best performances that I've seen for her. To be fair though, the last movie that I remember seeing with her in it was High School Musical, so
We're breaking free.
that song's a banger. I don't care what anybody says. But anyway, she gets startled, knocks some shit over, and then leaves. Mads goes to rent another movie, sees Camille, and then just... Alright, this is like the second time that y'all have just stared at each other within the span of like 2 minutes of on-screen time. So, are y'all gonna f or what? This transition though. So the A-team is going to all the properties that they got from Duncan's accountant. And they do these like Windows Movie Maker preset wipe transitions every time they go to another scene.
Starving.
And I'm gonna just speed through these shits because honestly nothing happens besides more gratuitous kills. They go to Duncan's properties in Florida, New Jersey, and Texas, and of course he's not at any of them. There are people there, but they've never heard of Duncan, so the A-team just kills them. So what connection does Duncan have to these properties even though the people aren't paying rent to him and don't even know who he is? Your guess is as good as mine. So in between all those scenes of the A-team going to Duncan's properties, Duncan is actually bonding with Camille. Awkwardly, but bonding nonetheless.
It's funny we're neighbors.
You live in the house with the big porch.
Yes.
I live in the gray cabin, just across the lake.
It's so funny.
That is funny.
Now, I actually watched an interview with Mads and the director of this movie, and they said they wanted to give Duncan like this weird, like awkward feeling when he's interacting with people. Seeing as he's been a killer for most of his life, but now that he's retired, they wanted to show that he doesn't really know how to interact with people normally. Which I get what they were going for, but it ultimately doesn't really work because Camille is the only one that's really acting weird. Which is because she has like PTSD, which I'll explain in a little bit. At one point, Camille asks him what he he does for a living. And he's like, I'm retired, but I used to have a traveling funeral business, and I've been to over 99 countries. And she's like, a traveling funeral business? That's weird. You should go and talk to the kids at the local school and tell them about the world. Which at first he's like, nah. But then he goes anyway. And this next scene is another time when I thought that this movie was trying to be a parody. But I actually like this scene a lot, because he goes to the school and he's like showing the kids how to use a kukri. And listen, I'm not a fucking knife weeb. I didn't know what his name was until he said it in the movie. But yeah, he's giving like knife slicing demonstrations and like handing out the knife so the kids can see. And he's passing out pictures of like bloated dead bodies. And the kids are just eating this shit up, while the teacher is over in the corner like, oh, my heavens. But then he has like a Q&A session with the kids, and they're asking him about things from other countries. And the movie uses this as an opportunity to show off some of Duncan's kills. So for example, one of the kids is like, do they eat turkey in Turkey? And Duncan's like, nah, they eat chicken on skewers. And then they cut to Duncan shoving a fucking kebab through some dude's head. They do this like 3 or 4 times, and it's very tongue-in-cheek, and it's probably my favorite scene in the movie for real. But then immediately after this scene, we have more awkwardness.
How did it go?
Pretty good. They like the knife.
Oh, that was a pretty cool knife, I guess.
What is this dialogue? And then the immediate next scene, dude is like,
I brought you something.
Oh, thanks.
You told me how much you like knives, so.
did she? Did she though? And then he gives her a gun. Hey, I know how much you said you like cookies, so I got you a little something. I don't know if it's the performances in this scene, but this scene is so unintentionally hilarious that I had to record my live reaction to it.
I don't know how to shoot.
That's okay. I'm a teacher now. Remember?
I'm a teacher now, remember? I shit you not, this is probably the funniest scene in this movie. Oh, and remember Discount Lucy Liu and Elton John are a couple? Yeah, me neither. But they are, and they're just like in front of everyone having like softcore phone sex. Is that a thing?
Tell me again, what is it you plan to do?
I will kill him for you.
Oh, yeah.
I love you.
Yeah, so if you haven't realized by now, the Fortnite Battle Pass is incompetent as f***. They've been in this hotel room for like 2 days trying to figure out where's Duncan. We can't find him. Mind you, the accountant told us earlier in the movie that Duncan has properties in 4 states, and these dickheads have only been to 3. So by process of elimination, he should be at the 4th property. But these assholes are like,
That fucking accountant was hiding something.
No, he wasn't. Y'all beat the bricks off this dude and he folded like a lawn chair and told you everything. Y'all are just stupid. So stupid that some random crack whore who you have on standby just for sex. No, I'm not kidding.
Finally.
Yeah, she figures this shit before y'all do. Like, yo, this movie. So remember those annual charitable donations that Duncan's been making? Well, the crackhead stumbles upon one of those slips and is like, wow, I can sure buy a lot of crack if I had $200,000. And they're like, Reggie? So they go through the documents and find more slips, and they see that these transactions have all been from the same bank in Montana. So they finally put 2 and 2 together and head to Montana. Meanwhile, Duncan is giving Camille a shooting lesson, which she fails at, and it's pretty obvious that there's some type of emotional baggage here. So later on in the scene, Camille tells Duncan a story about how she got raped by a Santa Claus when she was 13 years old, and how every time she closes her eyes, she sees him, and that she sometimes fantasizes about shooting him if she ever saw him again. Wow, that was a really touching story, Camille. I'm so sorry that whip transition. So the A-team is posted up in Montana, and they spot Duncan coming out of the general store. And they say,
Cindy's coming your way.
How? How do you know that? How do you know which road he's gonna take to lead to his house? You don't know where he lives. Is there one road in this entire town that only leads to Duncan's house? Am I a nitpicking asshole? Yes. So Cindy pulls out the old car broken down on the side of the road trick. Oh, so there's more than one road. Interesting. So Duncan's driving by and he sees that ass and he's just like, well, I gotta help, you know? I mean, who would I be if I saw somebody on the side of the road and didn't try to help them? Who would I be? And this is so obviously a bait that I would have thought that Duncan would be smart enough to see through it, but he doesn't because he's horny, I guess? Cindy tells him that her car's f***ed and her phone's dead, and she asks if she can go back to his place to charge it. And he's like, breasts. I mean, yes, you can come back. So to get to Duncan's crib, she charges her phone and makes a call, probably to the Bozo Squad. They have a little meal, and then you guessed it, she tries to seduce Duncan.
I said I'd never fuck anyone older than my dad.
And I don't even know why I said she tries to seduce him. Like, she literally says 2 sentences to him, and then the next thing we see is her getting her back blown out. And these two f***, and when I say f***, I mean f***. This sex sequence literally lasts for almost 2 minutes straight. Remember when I said this movie was gratuitous? Do you believe me yet? You know what makes this whole thing even weirder? The A-Team was listening on this shit the whole time. Yeah. They're sick. And once again, the sniper has been trained on them this whole time. And once again, he decides not to shoot him for some reason. So the squad is finally in position to make their move. And Cindy's like,
It's blow time, mister.
Cindy, you don't have to suck him off. Was that like a part of the job description? Like, must give head? You don't even have to have sex with him. You literally could have shot him and left him on the side of the road when you first walked up to the car. Because y'all have shown multiple times throughout the movie that you don't care if you kill someone and just leave their body there. But you know what? I'm gonna give y'all the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Cindy sucks at killing. Maybe she's only good at giving head. And maybe this time the gang wanted to be a little bit more discreet and follow them back to Duncan's crib before killing them. But mind you, they got to Duncan's crib while the sun was out. She was able to charge her phone, make a phone call, have an entire meal before getting her back blown out. What were y'all doing in that time? Skipping rocks? I'm sorry for this rant, but it's just the incompetence for me. But anyway, Duncan's about to get shot, and I guess like his Peter tingle goes off or something, because he just hoists Cindy up in the air and she gets shot instead. And then Duncan proceeds to shit on this entire squad. Fuck. Which includes a butt-naked, damn near instant transmission in the middle of the freezing cold. And instant transmission is the only way to explain how he was able to get out of that cabin, get around the lake, and get all the way to your position without you noticing, all within the span of like 2 minutes. Hey, whatever, Rip Frito or whatever your dumbass name was. So yeah, like I said, Duncan just sharts on this entire A-Team, you know, Blute's best. And this is where I want to talk about another issue that I had with this movie. Because in John Wick, there's kind of like this running bit in the movie where everybody knows who John is and how good he is or was at his job and exactly what he's capable of.
I heard you struck my son.
Yes, sir, I did.
And may I ask why?
Because you stole John Wick's car, sir, and killed his dog.
Oh.
So people have to switch up from their usual tactics if they want to f with him because, you know, he's him. But in this movie, they somehow acknowledge that Duncan is the best of the best while also simultaneously underestimating him every chance they get. You have Blute sending that bum to try to kill Duncan in Belarus. And you have this A-Team who's constantly talking shit to Duncan while they're trying to kill him.
Take it easy on his old ass. You're gonna kill him before I get a chance to.
You'll be dead before we leave here. You can't always get what you want, old man.
Even though they know who he is and what he's capable of, while using the same tactics that they used to take down Johnny in the beginning of the movie. Like, you read the description of the movie, Duncan has to go head to head with an army of younger, faster, more ruthless characters who will stop at nothing to have him silenced. So you would think by reading that description that they would give Duncan a little bit more of a run for his money, but there wasn't one point during this sequence where I was like, oh, they got Duncan on the ropes. He barely breaks a sweat taking this team out, and they're supposed to be Blute's best. And this whole like talking and underestimating this dude, even though you know he's the best in the business, just keeps on happening over and over and over again in this movie. And I think now would be a good time to tell you guys about Polar Came from the Cold, the comic book that this movie is actually based off of, that came out in 2013, almost a year before John Wick came out. And I honestly think it's because of this book that this movie gets an even worse rap than it should, because this movie grossly strays from the source material. So I didn't expect this video to be this long, so I'm deciding to split it up because I figured y'all wouldn't want to watch an almost hour-long video for my first video on this channel. So make sure to subscribe for the next part that will be coming out in the next couple of days. And also, let me know in the comment section how you guys feel about this movie so far. And also, how you feel about the video in general. Thanks.